So I have been a Mugen fan now for about 7 or 8 years, and last week, my best friend in the entire world posted an article to my Facebook page from Newsarama.com titled, "For Your Consideration, a Marvel vs. DC crossover proposal." And he said to me, "I am thinking Hulk versus Captain Marvel and Superman versus Thor. You could do this with your Mugen game." And I thought about it, and I said, yes, indeed I could. And I looked through the article, and I decided to try to create as many of the proposed battles as possible using Mugen. Iron Man versus Sinestro. Tony Stark is the ultimate man of science, living in a world filled with magic and gods and alien technology. Despite all that, he relies on his intellect and has been able to do wondrous things with it. So it would only be logical that a Green Lantern power ring, where the user can construct anything with the power of his mind, would intrigue him, no? And in DC's The New 52 relaunch, the current Green Lantern of Earth is Sinestro, who is also traditionally the arch-enemy of Hal Jordan, the most famous Green Lantern. There is some definite thematic weight in an Iron Man vs. Sinestro battle. After all, Stark's greatest enemy, the Mandarin, also wields a few rings, 10 to be exact, and honestly, they probably just really wouldn't get along. Quite a few of the qualities Sinestro loads in Hal Jordan, cockiness for example, are also readily apparent in Tony Stark. Daredevil vs. Sinestro.
I bring order to Earth.
Round 1. Fight.
Daredevil usually deals with street-level threats, guys like Bullseye and the Owl, who have very little in common with the cosmic power of a villain like Sinestro. But who wouldn't want to see a guy with the power of fear go against the guy who is known as the Man Without Fear? Aside from the philosophical clash, there would be some fun questions of comic book physics at play. For example, could Daredevil's radar sense detect Sinestro's light constructs? It may seem like Daredevil would be outmatched, but he's faced worse odds before, and always comes out on top. And honestly, there's a good chance that Daredevil would wind up with a yellow ring of his own when the dust settles. And we know how cool he looks in yellow. Wonder Woman vs. Red Skull.
Round 2. Fight.
Backed by his Nazi history, the Red Skull was portrayed as a power-hungry madman who's intent on tearing down the United States, and in particular, the symbol of its heroism, Captain America. Among all the major characters in DC's stable of heroes, Wonder Woman has become similarly symbolic of American freedom. Since she hails from the mythical island of Themyscira, she's essentially an immigrant, living up to that American dream. She's often had a bit of a political slant to her heroism, and there's no doubt that Red Skull represents a foreign threat to all things American. The Red Skull would undoubtedly rankle at Wonder Woman's message of love for all things, multiculturalism, and peace, and she'd have a strong fist ready to show him exactly what she thinks of his fascist views. And with Wonder Woman's World War II history and some iterations of DC's history, the idea of her clashing with the Skull wasn't much of a stretch at all. Fantastic Four versus Brainiac.
I'm getting sensor activity. It's getting warmer. Warmer. There. Round one. Fight.
In many ways, Brainiac should have been a Fantastic Four villain all along. After all, he comes from this strange, abstracted science fiction background that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby would have approved of, shrinking alien cities and stealing them to add to his collection and increase his knowledge base. You can imagine that Reed Richards would feel some sense of empathy for the scientific curiosity that drives Brainiac, even if he would also find himself horrified by the length that the alien goes to ensure that he keeps assimilating new ideas and new cultures. It's not too difficult to imagine that any fight between Brainiac and the Fantastic Four would come down to brain versus brain. Can Reed's genius outthink the 12th level intellect of Brainiac's cybernetically enhanced mind? But he'd provide enough problems to keep the rest of the team busy as well. What if his robots invaded the Baxter Building system and attacked the team when they least expected it? The Fantastic Four have experience being shrunk down to visit the Microverse, but what would happen if they were trapped within one of Brainiac's shrunken cities and had to negotiate an alien culture before they could escape? And how much would the Thing want to go all clobber in time on the alien signature floating skull spaceship? And what better way to return the Richards family from the pocket universe where they're currently sequestered? With his penchant for stealing portions of other universes and timelines, as seen in DC's Convergence, Brainiac would surely be attracted to the birth of numerous new universes. Brains, brawn, and the sight of a guy made out of orange rocks punching a giant robotic skull that flies around in space. A Fantastic Four Brainiac fight really would have it all. Green Lantern versus Thanos.
You wanna fight? You got
Round one.
fire it up. Pour it on.
The entire point of the Green Lantern Corps is to police every corner of the universe, and there are few cosmic threats quite as potent as Thanos, the mad titan who once wiped out half of all existence to impress a girl he liked. In fact, given the 3,600 sectors patrolled by the Corps, this crossover wouldn't even take too much to justify. No access required. Surely Thanos could be hanging out in one of those spots, right? Oh, and that girl alluded to? That would be Death, whom Thanos has been obsessed with throughout his history. So when faced with the power of the assembled Green Lantern Corps backup, perhaps Thanos would enlist some backup in the form of Necron and the Black Lantern Corps. Then the real fun begins. Annihilators like Quasar, Beta Ray Bill, and Ronan the Accuser, deputized with power rings, Chip meaning Rocket Raccoon for some reason. While still avoiding the hero versus hero cliché, Thanos versus Green Lantern wouldn't simply be a one-on-one, but the best of DC Cosmic interacting with the best of Marvel Cosmic for a sci-fi epic worthy of Jim Starlin himself. The Avengers vs. Darkseid. Despite existing in two separate universes, the Avengers and Darkseid are perhaps a perfect fit for each other. One represents the best of a universe built on concepts co-created by Jack Kirby, including, of course, plenty of Kirby characters, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, and the other represents Kirby's most fully formed personification of evil. A potential clash between these titans could have everything you'd ever want to read as well. If the Serpent could cause such chaos to the Marvel Universe in fear itself, how much trouble could a god with the power to enslave humanity with the anti-life equation cause? It's easy to imagine the kinds of things we'd see as the Avengers faced off against Darkseid and his army. Iron Man versus the parademons in the sky, Red Hulk versus Calabac on the rooftops of New York, Thor wrestling with Darkseid himself as Captain America struggles to free humanity from the new god's control. A story that mixes action, social commentary, and soap opera on the kind of grand operatic scale that Kirby perfected and Marvel continues to trade in today. Who could resist?
You have come where you are unwelcome. Round one. Fight.
Justice League vs. Galactus. Let's face it, if there is any group of comic book superheroes even more suited to fight off the Devourer of Worlds for the fate of the Earth more than the Fantastic Four, it's probably the Justice League of America, the team that inspired the creation of the Fantastic Four in the first place. Less traditionally evil, and more a cosmic force of nature, Galactus is the sort of nuanced villain that helped Marvel redefine comic book storytelling in the 1960s. Seeing the group that defined the modern superhero team book, and who are still arguably the most powerful packed roster in comics, square off against Antenna Head would be a particular treat, especially since Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, etc. would be encountering Galactus and discovering his peculiar nature for the very first time. Heck, if you really wanted to have fun, you could reveal that what really happened to Krypton is... Okay, forget it, we won't go there. But we would go straight to our local comic book store on Wednesday morning, the day this came out.
Mission accomplished.
XMen vs. Lex Luthor.
I'm ready. Let's go, Bob. I'll handle this one myself.
No matter how many people Superman helps or saves, Lex Luthor still hates him. Really, really hates him. Why? Because he's an alien. Xenophobia lies at the very essence of Lex Luthor's villainy. That's what makes him such an ideal villain for the X-Men. As any die-hard Marvel fan knows, the whole X-Men series is a metaphor for fear of the unknown. The mutant versus human theme of X-Men is often compared to the type of violent discrimination seen in the Holocaust or Civil Rights Movement. The fear and hatred of those who are different is central to the X-Men story. If there was ever a villain who could embrace that philosophy, it's Lex Luthor. And with his superior intellect and technological know-how, he would be a formidable match for Professor X and his followers as he took his fear and hatred to the extreme against more aliens. Luthor was even president in the DC universe, and when you think about it, if the Mutant Registration Act could have been crafted by any character at DC, it would have been Lex Luthor. Let's face it, these characters were custom made for a crossover. Batman versus the Green Goblin.
I'm Batman. Round 1. Fight!
Batman has a lot of experience dealing with homicidal maniacs who have an affinity for gimmicky weaponry and enjoy wearing purple. It can't be denied. But while the Joker and the Green Goblin may both be crazy, Norman Osborn also has a lot in common with Batman himself. They're both businessmen, they're both inventors, and they both saw plenty of successors and imitators. So with all that in mind, the Green Goblin actually might be an ideal opponent for Batman, combining the ruthlessness and unpredictability of the Joker with an intellect that rivals his own. It'd be worth it for the props alone. Goblin Glider versus Batmobile, Pumpkin Bombs versus Batarangs. SpiderMan versus the Joker.
I see the clowns, but where's the circus?
You're spoiling my
Round 1. Fight!
We've examined the potential of Green Goblin versus Batman, and this is kind of the inverse of that. One thing about Spider-Man's villains is that, for the most part, they have somewhat of a sense of fair play. They're usually of the powerful hired goon type like Rhino or Electro, or of the mad scientist variety like Dr. Octopus. Or maybe someone with a specific beef against Spidey or one of his supporting characters like Venom or the Scorpion. But they're rarely just murderers killing for fun. But that's exactly what the Joker is, and introducing his brand of chalky white darkness into Spidey's world could provide a truly compelling contrast. And yes, Spider-Man does have one villain known to kill just for fun, Carnage. But that character is highly powerful with alien origins, and it's the relatively grounded nature of the Joker that makes for an intriguing matchup with Peter Parker. Plus, Joker and Carnage already teamed up once, in 1995's Spider-Man and Batman. Recently, in Dan Slott's Amazing Spider-Man run, Spider-Man pronounced that he wasn't going to let anyone die under his watch. What better way to test that promise than against the most famous killer in comics?
in a coffin.
I gotta go some other direction.
Superman versus Dr. Doom.
Now you face round 1. Fight!
If there's one thing that we know about Grant Morrison's revised Superman from the first issue of Action Comics, is that he really, really doesn't like bullies. Somehow, that makes the idea of him facing off against Marvel Comics' ultimate bully, Dr. Victor Von Doom, all the more exciting to imagine. Sure, even Morrison's weakened Superman could probably make mincemeat of Doom without barely breaking a sweat, but that's assuming that he could get to him, and with an entire country of potential hostages waiting to be endangered. Distracting the Man of Steel wouldn't really be that much of a problem for the Iron Mask's despotic mastermind. If Lex Luthor can defeat Superman simply by arranging an out-of-control train careening off the rails, just think of how much trouble Superman would be in with all of Latveria available to be destroyed on demand. And that's ignoring the fact that Doom is also well-versed in one of Superman's most famous weaknesses, magic. With some well-timed spells up his armored sleeves, a country full of innocents to use as easily imperiled pawns, and of course, his seemingly endless army of Doom bots, there's every possibility that Dr. Doom could end up being too much for Superman to handle. But then again, reboot or not, Ma and Pa Kent's son never was able to give up when innocent lives were at stake, was he? Update. On a surface level, the idea of DC's biggest hero and Marvel's biggest villain squaring off is a no-brainer, even if Doom might seem like a pushover compared to a fully powered Superman. But Doom has a few tricks up his sleeve. First of all, at this point, Doom is operating as the infamous Iron Man, so a 2017 fight between Doom and Superman wouldn't be as cut and dried as a hero versus villain throwdown. On top of that, Doom has one big advantage over the Man of Steel, his mastery of the mystic arts. Everyone knows about Superman's weakness to kryptonite, but he's also incredibly vulnerable to magic, giving Doom, one of the Marvel Universe's greatest sorcerers, a distinct edge over Supes. Of course, Doom is pretty weak to extreme punching, so Superman might be able to even the score.